into our final segment, Swinpression, Spiritfarer. Take it away, Swinny.
Yeah, so Spiritfarer was a recent release. It was highlighted in, I think it was Nintendo's Indie Showcase. And it's in Games of Gold, so I
Mm.
wouldn't say I picked it up. I literally clicked a download button and was able to give it a shot. And so Spiritfarer is available on PC, PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and Stadia, amazingly.
Stadia.
So it's developed and published by Thunder Lotus Games. I'm not sure, aware of any previous work that they've done, and it technically came out on August 18th, so it's a relatively recent release. And I was super pumped to try this. It had a good showing in that indie showcase. I think it's got quite a bit of buzz about it because it's just got a
Massive.
really, really cool art style.
Yeah.
Got a very chill, I guess, presentation overall, but also just the gameplay. And I guess to kind of frame what the game is, so you play as a girl named Stella who's wearing this awesome hat, basically. That's the whole game. She's wearing an awesome hat. Now she's taken over from a retiring, and I never know how to say this, Karen or Haron or whatever, basically the ferryman of the dead. So she's actually taking over as the ferryman of the dead. Oh, by the way, the pronunciation, I looked it up. There's no set pronunciation. It's so annoying about that word. Anyway.
That's like a Ubisoft and Ubisoft.
Yeah. So, and she's accompanied by her cat named Daffodil. So they're basically, the whole point of this game is that you're this ferryman or ferrywoman, and you're comforting spirits on their final passage to the underworld. And that sounds really dark, but it's framed in a way where it's a really positive game, or at least in the early stages. I can't say later on because these are just probably my first 2 hours with the game.
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult game to actually classify. It's kind of like the mechanics are straightforward, but you can't really slot them into one specific genre. If I had to describe it, I think it's kind of got a touch of Stardew Valley. So in terms of growing crops, making people happy, collecting resources, things like that. A bit of Wind Waker, because you're cruising around the ocean, you're selecting points on a map, and then you actually have to spend the time traveling there. I believe you do unlock fast travel eventually. And so while you're traveling, you can fish and do other things. So just think, if anyone remembers Wind Waker, a lot of the time you're just spending just chilling on the ocean as you go into your destination. So this is similar, but the whole thing with this is you're on the boat and doing different things while that's happening. And the last thing I'd probably compare it to is probably a Studio Ghibli film or Ghibli film in terms of the visual design and the spirits. It reminds me a lot of the Spirit Bathhouse from Spirited Away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool. It does have its own unique take. It's not like they've copied anything. It's just that it just eschews that. It's got it just reminds me of it. And the majority of the game is set on the boat. So the idea is you upgrade the boat, you build more buildings on it, which seems weird, but it's literally houses on a boat. But you increase the size of your boat so you can accommodate more people. You find spirits around the world. Sometimes they'll just join you straight away. Sometimes you have to do something, and then you make them happy. And if you make them happy enough, and you give them food, you hug them, you talk to them, and do quests for them, then they might actually do stuff around the boat for you. So they might water your crops or might help you in the sawmill and things like that. But there's essentially it's a weird mix. So like there's cooking, crafting, lots of mini games. Like you can sing to your crops, which is a neat touch. Like when you're with the cat's actually like singing, and the animation is absolutely amazing in this game. But one thing I'll say about this game though is that so as I was playing, I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna love this game, and it's got a lot of people it's very critically acclaimed so far from what I've read.
Yeah, massively.
I realized about an hour in that I was forcing myself to play this game.
Interesting.
So I respect this game in so many ways and I have so much praise for the different elements. But when it comes to actually playing it, I was just very bored, honestly. And I know it picks up because even early on, you start having to build different buildings on your boat. So you're having to manage a lot more when you're doing those trips. But
yeah,
I just really don't think the game's for me, honestly. You know how when you just get that impression, you're like, yeah, I can see why people love this game, but maybe it's just not for me. And I think
Yeah.
that's how I felt. Like I don't actually think I'll play anymore, simply because
Oh wow.
I just wanted to play enough to be able to give these impressions
Yeah,
and
your Swinpressions, you
my
mean?
swim impressions. And there's the game definitely gets more depth to it. You know, I've since gone and also read a lot more about how the game keeps progressing. So it's not that there's not much to do. I just I just wasn't having a good time with it. I will say, so I mentioned about the presentation. The
Mm.
absolute highlight for me, though, are the animations. Just even the subtle ones with the expression. So, you know, when you go up to hug one of the spirits, or you can even hug your cat, it's the animation is just so great. But the problem I had is I'm playing on quite a small TV,
Yeah.
and it felt like it does zoom in every now and then, especially when you go into buildings. But it's so zoomed out by default that I feel that I'm missing a lot of the detail in that great animation. So I think if you've got a bigger TV, then you know it's going to be nicer. But I do wonder what it's going to be like playing portable on the Switch because it's so zoomed out.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of looking at it on a screen in our B-roll that's, kind of roughly the size of a Switch. And that's kind of my impression. I've looked at it and go, wow, it's like really zoomed out, like, and really, really finely detailed, like really, thin lines and things like that.
Yeah, I was trying to
Um,
like the character. Your character Stella is very expressive, but I kept wanting to is there a button to zoom in so I can actually see this animation because it's so cool, but I just can't see
yeah.
that well all the time. But
Yeah.
another thing I'll say about the game is it's actually got local co-op, and
Oh, okay.
I actually think
Who,
this.
who do you play as?
So you play as the cat, the second player,
That's cool.
and what's awesome about it is when you. I haven't played it co-op, but I've looked a lot into it because I want to make sure I didn't do the game a disservice. What's actually really good about that is that the cat can essentially do everything on the ship that the Stella can do. So the cat Staffordil, except I think talk to the spirits. So while you're actually doing some stuff, let's say if the first player is cooking something, or they're doing some fishing, or they're building something, then the cat can actually go around and like water the crops and do everything else all on the whole ship. So I actually think this is actually really really good game for anyone that because it's local. Anyone that's looking for a chill game they can play with their partner or with a kid. I think it's a really good game for that. I just think it wasn't, especially at the moment. I don't know if it's just because it came off playing Crosscode, which is can get very intense. That game that maybe it was a bit of too much of an abrupt shift to go straight into playing Spiritfarer. But I do think it is a fantastic game. And I guess what also soured me is, and it's a small thing, but it did frustrate me. So early on in the game, you go to, it's kind of it's you know, like the tutorial section basically. So it's working you through the different mechanics, and they take you to this island, and you go to purchase seeds off a merchant, which is kind of a play on Tom Nook because it's a raccoon merchant. And
Yeah.
they say, "Here's the mission. Okay, buy some seeds." So I go and buy some seeds. Nothing happens, and I'm like, "Okay, what's happened?" So
Huh.
I'm talking to all the
Yeah.
characters, and I can't progress. I go
Huh?
back to my boat, but the main quest is to buy seeds. So I'm like doing everything I can. I'm like, "What is going on?" I go online. Has anyone hit this? Is this a bug? Is this game breaking bug or whatever? So I gave it a break. I came back the next day. I found someone online that said, "Oh no, you just have to buy a specific seed." But the game, I swear, the game didn't tell me. So I thought that I had this
Okay.
game breaking bug, and it was just. I think that did sour me because I'd spent all my money on those other seeds. I just didn't buy that one specific seed that would move the quest on. And I have heard that there are quite a few bugs and some people losing saves and things in the game. So
Ugh.
I don't think don't say, that's not me pushing you away, but maybe if you are interested in the game and you don't need to play it right away, maybe just give it a little bit for them to work through those teething issues. Because I
Yeah.
think it is a game that a lot of people love. It's just not a game for me.
Yeah, and in like again, I think in general that's pretty good strategy. Unless you're playing a multiplayer game, these single player games, you you often benefit from waiting a month or two for them to release some really critical patches that they just haven't picked up on certain things. And I just wanted to quickly point out around Thunder Lotus Games that they had released Jotun and Sundered, which I'd actually
Oh
heard of both
yes,
of those games
yes.
before. So I just wanted to point that out. But you know, I'm not trying to be like a Californian surfer from the 90s, but this is often why I say a game doesn't vibe with me, because it's kind of more like, I'm not really saying the game's a bad game. It's more just like, doesn't click with me. Like, it's just not my type of game. But from your perspective, it sounds like, if you're looking for that kind of, as they advertise it themselves, a cozy management game about dying. If that sort of sounds your speed, you're saying that that's probably a good game to pick up.
Yeah, and I will say there's some cool, like, the game does have a lot of traversal options. So you unlock early on, you unlock a double jump. They've got mini games where you have to catch lightning on the boat as you're traversing. So there is like an action element to it in some regards. But I think just check out the trailer, maybe check out some gameplay. If you think it looks cool, like, I love Stardew Valley. This is almost like a super chill version of Stardew. Stardew has time pressure. This really doesn't have any time pressure that I encountered.
Mm.
There is a day-night cycle and things, but it's not punishing. Like, if when it hit the night, I just sent, everyone went to bed, and I just did some stuff on the boat and woke up the next day and just continued on. So it didn't feel like I was like, oh, I need to get stuff done so I can achieve the next thing I want to for the next day.
Yeah, like min-maxing or anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
it did not feel like a min maxing game at all. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe I kind of like that drive.
I think you do.
Yeah, but I it's a charming game. It plays well, and I think a lot of people will love it. Maybe not my cup of tea.